Freshie tobacco fragrances aren't really that common, but today we're going to look at one that is. What's going on, guys? My name is Neeb. Welcome to Aromatics. Like I said earlier, it really isn't that common that we find fresh tobacco fragrances. Today's fragrance is from Ibrahim Al-Quraishi and it's called Spanish Tobacco. The bottle is inspired by a cigar. It's a pretty nice looking bottle. And this cap really snaps into place and it's on there pretty damn solid. So I'm going to place a note somewhere up on the screen here and we're just going to go ahead and jump right into this review. So with this fragrance, you get a decent dose of saffron in the opening. It's a bit spicy right in the beginning. You get a hefty dose of that spicy saffron, which is complemented with the salty accords from the aquatic notes, and you get a lot of citruses as well. But the one thing I will say about this is that the citruses in this fragrance are pretty flat. The saffron does add a little bit of a sharpness, which does help enhance those flat citruses, but for the most part it does stay pretty flat. The aquatic notes contributes a hefty dose of some salty accords, and early on in this fragrance you're going to start to notice this golden colored blonde type of tobacco quality. It's really light, it's very unique, it's different, and it's airy. So it's not what you would think is common with a lot of other Freshies. The one thing I will say is that when this opens up, I'm reminded of fragrances like Versace Pour Homme, except much more interesting, much different really. If you take fragrances like Versace Pour Homme, but you really emphasize each of those notes, that's kind of what you're getting. So whereas that one will do an aquatic note, this is pretty much aquatic notes times 2.5, maybe even times 3. So pretty dense notes here, especially for a Freshie. When you wear this, it's a pretty thick fragrance. It's very, very loud, and it's very thick of a fragrance. And the atomizer on this thing is no joke either, guys. Pretty strong stuff. So this really does contribute to a beast mode performing fragrance. But it is one that I personally went nose blind to. As we get into the mid of this fragrance, the citruses start to mellow out. The aquatic notes are still there, but everything kind of just gets fluffed out. The tobacco does start to shine through a little bit more, and what you're left with by the mid is pretty much this light green and airy type of tobacco with the aquatic notes, a lot of aquatic notes, and the iris does a pretty good job at adding some fluff. So by the mid of this fragrance, you're gonna get a little bit more woods. It's nothing unusual, but it's definitely more so in the mid than it was in the opening. When I saw the note of cacao and amber, I thought this might go a little bit warmer, but it really doesn't get too warm. Granted, when it does get into the mid, it does lose some of its freshness, but it still remains aquatic. And that's really what this fragrance shines around mostly, you guys. A lot of aquatic notes and the tobacco, essentially what it is, and pretty much the woods. So once you're in the dry down, you get an aquatic type of tobacco. That's essentially what this fragrance does. So think of your typical type of aquatic fragrances like the aforementioned Versace Pour Homme, much more enhanced. This stuff is beast mode, you guys. I wore this, I took a shower, I went for my 11 or 12 hour shift, and I was getting compliments on this by the end of the night. They were asking me what I was wearing, and I refused to believe that they could smell me, but I took out the bottle and I was like, is this what you're smelling? And they said, yeah. I genuinely stopped smelling this at around hour 5, and I honestly believe it's just because this stuff is just beast mode. The next day I tried to wear this one and I put a little bit less sprays, so I wore 3 sprays, and I definitely got 8 hours up until I showered. So be careful with this. It is super strong. I specifically remember wearing this fragrance to the gym and one of my buddies telling me that he could smell me literally everywhere. Meanwhile, to me, I could smell it, but it wasn't anything spectacular. So all in all, that's kind of how I feel about this fragrance. It's nothing spectacular. It's a beast mode aquatic and tobacco fragrance. A little unusual in my opinion, but not too unfamiliar. So familiar with being a bit unique. That's exactly how I feel about this one. Salty aquatics, woody tobacco. That's essentially what it is. A light fluffy iris, tobacco, and aquatic notes is Spanish tobacco. Performance, you guys, like I said, beast mode, 12 plus hours. And the story of the gym is hopefully enough to serve as how well this projects. It's a monster. A lot of these Middle Eastern perfumes, especially at this price point with the niche and designers, are just beast mode, and this is one of those fragrances. You can find this fragrance on fragbar.com, and you can take 10% off of your purchase with code aromatics. They're based out in Canada, but they do ship out to the US as well. Or you can check out Oud Wood Perfumes, which is based out in Michigan, and you can get 5% off with code aromatics. Guys, check this one out. If you're into aquatic fragrances, or you're into beast mode, that's a no-brainer. I'm gonna rate this fragrance at about a 7.5 out of 10, but if you're into aquatics, tobacco, and beast mode, then this is probably gonna be right up your alley. If you enjoyed watching this video, do me a favor, scroll down, hit that subscribe button, and until the next one, peace.